Hello and welcome to Telling It Like It Is. I'm Dave Scholler. With me, I have lifelong buddy, Hofstra baseball player, Brockport baseball player, Steve Silverman, lifelong intense Met fan. he's, pumped, he's pumped up for opening day tomorrow, as we all are. It's preview time, and we're excited to have him on. Thanks for coming on, Steve.
Thanks, Dave. Not a problem. Yes, this is pretty much the happiest time of year.
Oh, it's wonderful. You got, I was just saying to Catherine before, it was weird because we had basketball on Monday and Tuesday night this week. Usually we don't get that. And then we have Wednesday night off, which is tonight. And then tomorrow starts baseball. And I know you'll share this with me, but I feel like baseball season is the most special one to me. Not just because I played it so much, but I feel like it's a good friend. Like you're with them every day. It's like your best friend. Like you're there every day for 180 days. And then
Right, well,
basically the season's over.
yeah, well, people like us, we follow it every night.
Sure.
So from April 1st to the last out of the World Series,
Sure.
we're following.
Love it.
And whether our team's in it or not, we're still following. I mean, for all those years that the Mets were horrible, I still watch every day.
Sure.
Just for that one morsel of something to look forward to.
I always have a warm spot for the Mets, even though I'm not a Met fan. I'm an A's fan, obviously. But because my dad would always watch the Mets, and I would always go up into the office because mom would kick him out of the downstairs when he's watching the Mets. I go upstairs and watch the Mets with dad. And you know what, though? The Mets, Met fans always talk like, they've been so bad for so long. But the Mets, for most years, they're competitive. I know they've had some dry spots, but the A's will go through 4 or 5 year periods where we just sell anything what's worth a nickel. And then we we lose 100 games 3 or 4 years in a row, and then we're back. I mean, it's I think the Mets fans have to be really excited, which leads me to my first question. What do you think of this whole Lindor 10 years for $325 million turning this down?
Well, it's first off, it's just a continuation of the winter that this isn't the Wilpons Mets anymore.
That's correct.
The offer is legit. It was a real offer. It wasn't one of those, oh, we'll make an offer and then they offer them 4 years for 120 million.
You're right.
This was a real offer.
Sure.
Now, the problem for Lindor, yes, he wants what he wants, and let's be real. We're talking relative because nobody's worth this kind of money.
Sure.
But in baseball sense, he wants what he wants. They're 20 million apart, 2 years apart. Do I hope something gets done before tomorrow? Yes. Does it mean nothing's going to get done? No, but he could be walking into a huge storm.
Oh, yeah.
As far as backlash from the fans, because ownership did this one right. They came with a legit, real offer that nobody expected them to come with.
Sure.
And now he's going to haggle over two more, 10 years, he'll be 37 at the end of the deal. Not most likely not the same player he's going to be in the next 3-4 years.
Sure.
So he's 27, so he's coming into his prime. So yeah, you want to get as much as you can, but on the other hand, you don't want to, hogtie the organization, and then they have, in 3 years they've got you and nobody else.
Very true. I mean, I think there's so many dynamics here. I think it's hard for like the fans calling up the radio the last couple of days. It's hard for them to understand it. Like we'll never be in that position, to make 325 in 10 years. But the thing is, like, you understand where the player comes from. But for me, I think sometimes people don't live in the real world. And if you look outside the window and, it's a hard time economically for people. The baseball owners didn't have fans. They're not going to have all their fans again this year. And the thing is, sure, they get TV contracts and things of that nature. But sometimes I think people who are holding out for more don't understand that. And I think what you said is 100% accurate. I mean, the buzzsaw, like you could see him going 0 for 4 tomorrow, getting booed.
Well, it's not even that, because they're they're on the road to start. So when they come home, God forbid, even Hall of Famer like Piazza, he struggled his first month when he came over.
Sure.
But he was the hope, and they didn't really get on him.
Right.
I mean, he was in his walk year, and then he signed his extension after the season, and everything was God bless Piazza.
Yeah.
But if he's going to play out this whole year, knowing that 325 was on the table,
sure,
he's going to hear it from the crowd. He's going to hear it from the media. Now, yeah, he'll be motivated to have a great season because he's in his walk year. But the pressure, he might put undue pressure onto himself. And instead of having a bad week, it turns into a bad month.
Right.
And then he's pressing the whole season. And we end up having Carlos Baerga.
Yeah, New York is not Cleveland, and he's going to find that out quick.
The first time he pops up and doesn't run it out, he'll hear it.
Oh yeah, it's quite the thing. Which brings me to the other thing. I mean, we spoke about this the other day briefly, but how in God's name can Major League Baseball not figure out that we need to open with all the northern teams in a warm weather climate or a dome? I cannot believe the Mets are going to go out there tomorrow in DC. It'll probably be a beautiful 50 and rainy.
Oh no, I checked it. It's going to be raining all day, and it's going to stop raining around 5 o'clock. So it'll be damp, and it's going to be 43 degrees at game time.
And you have two best pitchers in baseball, probably two of the best on the hill, and it could hurt their arm. I just don't. This is something that is amazing to me. Like, why can't we commit to that? Like, as a group, I mean, can't we get like all the teams in a warmer weather for the first week, just so we could not get rained out and get behind schedule, and B, just so we can protect the arms. I mean, as former pitchers, both of us, you got to protect those arms. That's how Jose Rio hurt his way back in the day. But it doesn't seem like a lot to ask. You think the schedule makers could figure this out?
No, well, I mean, in that vein, baseball's dumbest concoction, to me, the World Baseball Classic,
Sure.
is basically killed Seth Lugo.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's
you're asking guys to ramp it up in March, and he pitched for Puerto Rico, and he was the star of the team, and he hasn't been right since because he hurt his elbow.
Yeah, I wish we would let minor leaguers whose season might have ended earlier take our best minor leaguers and reward them with that. I mean, if they wanted to do it, I mean, of course, I think that'd be a great reward for them. They get some great exposure. I think that we should do that. I mean, I know everybody wants to win, but I wouldn't mind watching all these great minor leaguers. I love minor league baseball, and so to see all them play would be just wonderful. But I don't know. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. Anyway, there's always a lot of problems in the game, but at the same time, I love baseball, and so I still love that 60-foot 6-inch confrontation. It's still such fun, and it's like I said, it's like your best friend. You're here with them every night for 162 games and hopefully playoffs. And well, they're going back to the old format. They're not using last year's, so that's an interesting thing. But so what do you think of your starting five rotation this year? How do you feel about that?
Obviously, we've got, in my opinion, the number one or number two pitcher in baseball at the top. So
Definitely.
you can't go wrong there.
Nope.
Stroman at number two, if he's Stroman, who goes 7, then fine. If he's the guy who throws 100 pitches in 4 2/3, then they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Peterson, I like. He's a young lefty. He's got good stuff. He seems composed. He didn't get rattled. You've got Taijuan Walker, who's a nice acquisition from the Rockies.
Yes, he is.
And the fifth spot right now is Joey Lucchesi, another veteran who knows how to pitch.
Good.
They're saying Syndergaard might be ready in June. To me, that means All-Star break.
Yeah.
After the All-Star break, he'll come back and he'll be what he'll be this year on his restrictions.
Sure.
And you'll get what you get, but that'll just give more depth to the bullpen.
Sure. And I always think, like, when you get a guy back from injury in the middle of the season, I always feel like it's a free agent pickup in some ways. It's like, especially a guy with the stuff of Noah, so I always feel like it's a boost to the club. But it's like getting like I said, it's like signing someone in the middle of the year. You don't want anybody to be injured, but when you're getting them back, always feels like that little boost, that thing that I just feel like it's a lift for the team. But he's the guy that's really got to be pumped up to go, because he was missed so much time last year. So he's got to be really excited to go. You just hope he doesn't overthrow when he comes back, because
right. Well, that to me, that's his problem.
Sure.
His two biggest things in life are, let me see how high I can get it on the gun, and what can I throw on Twitter. He's not to me, he's a thrower. He's not a pitcher yet.
Sure. And Jacobs just he's like Mozart on the mound. It's just unbelievable.
It's funny because like Syndergaard, he throws 102 and his changeup's 91. Well, great. They can all hit the 91, and his slider he overthrows.
Right.
And everything for him is how fast can I get it up there?
Yep, that's true. And a major leaguers wouldn't be there if they couldn't hit a fastball. They're all tough. I guess the biggest question I have, two biggest questions I have for the Mets. The first one is, what do you expect out of that bullpen this year? Got great names in that pen, but they always leave me wanting a little bit better performance.
Well, the key to the entire, as far as I'm concerned, the key to the entire season is Edwin Diaz.
Sure.
If he comes back as like he turned it around the last 2-3 weeks last year,
Yes, he did.
look like Edwin Diaz. All spring, he's looked like Edwin Diaz. If he can be that guy, then we don't have to worry about the ninth inning. But if
Great.
we got to go hunting and pecking to find a closer, then that's a lot of trouble because Betances. I think Betances is going to get cut before May because it looks like he's got nothing left.
He's got such good stuff, though. He's like a mystery to me.
But he got hurt and he can't find his speed, so he doesn't know what to do.
It's amazing, though. Like, I know in my version of heaven, I'm going to the mound with Betances' stuff just once. I mean, I never saw, even when he was with the Yankees, I saw a guy who could throw 99 and nibble with curveballs. I'm like, wait a second. You throw a 99, the best pitch is a spotted fastball. So, I mean, like, what are we doing? Like, you have that kind of stuff and like everything's a breaking ball. It's like he has such good stuff and I just keep waiting. I keep waiting. But
yeah, well, yeah, his whole thing is arm strength, and if he's really recovered, Familia has to get his head straight.
Sure.
What hurt really was losing Justin Wilson.
Oh, yes.
Because I mean, besides the fact that he was a lefty,
Yep.
but he wasn't a situational lefty.
Right.
He was a 2-inning lefty.
Oh, yeah. Those guys are rare.
And he could take out the 6th and 7th inning.
Yeah.
The other guys in the that's the problem with a lot of bullpens in baseball. Between expansion and all these nobody can throw this many pitches or go that many innings.
Sure.
You've got a lot of guys pitching in the major leagues who have no business pitching in the major leagues.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you water down the product. And that's what happens. You water down a product. But getting back to Diaz for a second, I have to tell you, when he was in Seattle, man, he was unbelievable. As an A's fan, unfortunately, I saw him 19 times a year. I'm not making excuses for him, but that first year here, if you go back and you look at the statistics of all the relievers in baseball, for the strong most part, when I look back and looked, him and guys like Blake Trinan did not have the same. That was the A's closer back then. They did not have nearly the same year. And I know that many pitchers talked about the ball being slicker, and I'll tell you that would affect your slider. I'm not giving him a pass. I'm not giving him a pass, but the ball was different that first year, 2 years ago, and I'm hoping that they get away from whatever that idea was, because his slider definitely, it looked like it was just coming out and like spinning him, but not getting any sharp bite, because he was unbelievable. I mean, he was nasty in 2019. Like in 2018, you couldn't do anything with him, and and unfortunately, like I said, Seattle. In that ballpark, he's challenging hitters. The ball's not going anywhere, and you just couldn't do anything with him. And I feel like the injury to Lugo is going to be tough too, right? And you said how long is he out for? Do we know?
They're thinking May.
Oh, geez.
So that means maybe June, because he's got to go through. He didn't go through spring training,
sure.
So he's going to have to build up. But the problem with Lugo is he's a starting pitcher.
Yes.
Yeah, he's effective in the bullpen, but you can't use him. If you use him 2 days in a row, he's gone for a week.
Sure.
And that's why when he was the closer, I said, great. So that's 1 day a week, because he's not coming in back-to-back days.
Sure. Now
he's one of those guys that I think that they can use if he shows he's healthy and productive. As the season goes on, you can ship him to somebody who needs an arm.
Yeah.
And get something in return.
I would love to have him. I mean, like, because Bob Melvin overuses the bullpen, so I would love to have him. But hopefully we'll be all right. We won't overuse the bullpen. But the biggest concern for me, and I have a ton of Met fans I eat lunch with every day at work. Most of my teaching buddies are Met fans. And I keep telling them, and they get really mad, but I say, guys, your defense still big concern for me, because I know the extra outs are, as a pitcher, the extra outs are just tough. And I feel the Mets are partly to blame for this, because I feel like they don't commit to anybody at a spot. Like, if you're going to give J.D. Davis third, let him stay there. Like, you got to commit to these guys. We can't get, if you're going to give somebody second base, commit to them. So how do you feel about your infield defense this year?
As a baseball purist, and I know this is sacrilege, I was actually kind of hoping they were going to bring the DH back.
Sure.
So that Alonso would be the DH and Don Smith would be at first.
Sure.
Because Alonso, he looked real, for the rookie year was phenomenal, but this, the sophomore jinx hit him both ways.
Sure.
He had brick hands at first. JD Davis showed he can play third, but
Yeah,
then he has
he
his
did.
moments.
Yep.
But David Wright had his moments too.
Sure.
He couldn't throw.
That's right.
So, they finally settled Jeff McNeil at second. He's not going to be like a Ben Zobrist type and play everywhere.
Good.
He's going to be at second. And you got Lindor at short. So
That's
up the middle, you're solid.
good.
Bringing in McCann was a significant upgrade.
Sure.
So they're solid up the middle that way. It's gonna be, if JD Davis I'm not asking him to make the Butch Hops and Greg Nettles, Brooke
Sure.
Robertson plays.
Sure.
Just make the plays.
Sure.
And
You can ask him to match
Alonzo pick up scoops. That's
Yeah, you don't need him to be Matt Chapman at third, but even Chapman struggled a little bit last year in the field. But Dom Smith playing left field, how is that coming? I wonder.
It's progressing, but like anything else, I have shades of Todd Hundley.
I remember those days.
But he's athletic enough where he can make it work. He just needs the experience. But again, that's what the Mets do sometimes is they force guys out of position. And well, in the past, it was because I'm not spending the money to go get somebody else.
Sure.
In a perfect world, this winter, they could have gotten Jackie Bradley Jr. in center and moved Nimmo to left.
Sure.
But then what do you do with Dom then?
Right.
Because you're not platooning Alonso.
I was hoping that before we picked up Moreland, I was telling the Met fans last year, I said, I'd like to sniff around Dom Smith for my lefty DH. And I was, because Matt Olson's a great defensive first baseman. I kept saying I would love to get Dom Smith because right now, I don't know what he's making, but I know he's not making a lot. So I was thinking that's a perfect A's kind of guy, make a trade and pick up a guy like Dom Smith and ink him to like, I don't know, 5 years, 20 million or something. He'd think he would like won the lottery and we could have had a great lefty hitter because our lineup was too righty, but now we picked up Moreland. So we got some lefties in there, but I really craved Dom Smith. I was thinking to myself, I'd love to get my hands on him because he's like the perfect A guy. And we have the DH in the American League. And, he could spell Olson on a given night here or there. And I wanted to get him so bad, but I know he was still under contract. So we never got a shot.
Well,
but,
it's funny because my buddy and I at work, he's another huge Met fan and we talk all the time. And when the rumors about the Mets poking around about Chapman, he's like, what do you think it will take? I said, I'm starting with Dom.
Yeah.
I said, give him Dom and a couple of arms.
Sure.
A couple of young arms and go at it and see if that's enough.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to have to wait long because Boros, I believe, is his agent. The A's are going to make that fake offer. And then, that's, the A's have such a short window. Like if the window closes, like, because Olson and him will both add an extra year to their contract, but they're still underpaid. So this is going to be like a time where the A's have to strike while the iron is hot, and it's going to be interesting. Now I know Conforto's in right. Who you got in center there? Do you think?
Well, Nimmo's in center.
I like him.
I like him as a fourth outfielder.
Sure. Okay.
To me, he's not.
You want more?
He hustles. He smiles. He's always on base. But he doesn't cover ground like a center field.
Okay.
He's better in left.
Sure.
And his arm's not the best.
Right.
Again, that's this winter when Cone buys the team. Oh, we're going after everybody.
Yeah.
Part of me was like, yay, but then I said, no, he's also a smart businessman. So they made a fair offer to Springer. They didn't get him. Okay. Yep. But I was upset they didn't make a move on Bradley. Yeah. Especially for what he signed for.
Yeah, Bradley's a good player. Very good player.
He would have been a serious upgrade in center. Nimmo could have moved to left, and all of a sudden, your defense is solid.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. It's tough because your lineup looks really solid on paper. You have to be pumped up. This shouldn't be the year where you can't score runs. This team should hit. This looks like this is the best Met lineup they've had. I would say probably. I know you made that run in 2015, but I think this lineup's as good as the 06 lineup. I think you got professionals up and down the whole lineup.
No, absolutely. But even then, you've got Nimmo leading off, but is he really a leadoff hitter?
Sure.
It looks like they're going to hit Lindor second, and they're going to move McNeil down to 6 or 7.
I'd like to see McNeil at second and the
Yeah.
second spot because he's so useful with the bat. He's like a magician up there. He's such an underrated hitter.
Well, and God forbid baseball bring back the hit and run. He's perfect.
Yeah, God forbid we steal a base or bring back the hit and run. It's blasphemy. Yeah, but that lineup should really produce. Like I said, people don't understand this. Even though I'm watching the A's every night in the dish, you do see the Yankees and the Mets every day too, because so I'm constantly flipping channels. And so I always see the Mets and the Yanks every night. I get a part of their game while I'm waiting for the A's either to start at that 10 o'clock start time, which kills me. But you're waiting for it because you're flipping back and forth, and that lineup should definitely be potent. I mean, if you guys could just catch the ball, that's my biggest concern. And then that bullpen, if you can take care of those two things, I think it should be really solid this year.
Well, I mean, we've for years I've been saying they should have changed their name to the New York Ifs. Because
Yeah,
if that happened, and if this, but that's every team.
sure.
And it's frustrating because you got to figure. So I was thinking about this last night. I started really watching the Mets when I was 5 or 6. So you're talking 74, 75.
Sure.
So they were horrible
Yeah, they were bad.
until 1984.
Right.
Then I had the run from 84 to 89,
Yep, I remember that.
which was love and life.
Yeah, well, you're high school and college, so you're loving it.
I mean, we went to so many games just because back then you had the general admission and we just sat upstairs. And
That's right.
And then the early 90s was the Vince Coleman, Brett Saberhagen debacle.
Torborg.
Jeff Torborg. Then the late 90s, they brought Bobby V.
I love
how they got to the World Series in 2000 with an outfield of Benny Agbayani,
Yep.
Timo Perez,
And
Jay Payton is beyond me.
Jay Payton, former Oakland A, played well for us. Played well for us as a fourth outfielder. He was really good for us.
I mean, that team surprised me. Then they went to a lull in 2006, Reyes and Wright's first year.
Right.
And we're going to be there forever and this is great. And then no, because
sure,
injuries
here and there and
injuries, ownership. The funniest thing I heard, whether it's true or not, but Carton on the Fan one day said that when Fred Wilpon put Jeff in charge of the team, Jeff was at a function with Carton and says, "What do I do now? I have no idea how to run a baseball team."
Yeah, I've heard that story.
So, that's what we were dealing with.
Can I tell you my Mets are cursed theory?
Go ahead.
That's just a theory, obviously. But I really believe this down in my heart, though. I feel like teams that win a championship in a wild way then suffer a period of jinx. And nobody won a more wild championship in baseball probably than the 86 Mets. You got a couple of real fortunate singles there. Then Bob Stanley's like trying to kill worms in front of the plate. You got a guy who had 2 bone spurs playing first base who couldn't beat Mookie to the bag even if he caught the ball. I mean, I always look at that and I'm thinking every Met fan's just probably saying to himself during that game, please let us win this. Please let us win this. And you make those promises. We've all been there. Please let us win this. I'll never ask for anything again. I feel like since that to me is still the strangest World Series winner in the way they won it. To me, it leaves you like, it's like the baseball gods were like, hey, listen, we gave you an historic one. Now we're going to make you suffer a little bit. because you were winning games in World Series with, Benitez came in and blew a couple. Then you had, I think it was Familia blew a couple, right? Yep. So, I mean, like you guys have had some good World Series leads in the ninth and sometimes they've slipped away. I feel like it's a little bit of, all right, you guys all swore that you wanted this one in 86 and we gave it to you. But now the baseball gods were like, well, now you're going to have to struggle.
Well, you can even go back further to, go back to 88 and Socha dunking that double off of Gooden.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, don't remind me of 88 because, I still can't believe that's the worst hitting team I've ever seen win the World Series in my life. And Mickey Hatcher hitting 35 hoppers through the infield versus the A's. That was not good, but that's just my little, I feel like it's a little bit of a karma / curse theory on the Mets. Who knows? Maybe this year you'll break out of that, but you've served long enough. It's been 25 years. This could be it. That curse only goes maybe 25 years. This could be the year.
Possibly. And funny thing about that 86 one,
35
game
years.
six,
35 years. My fault.
35 years.
35.
And the 86 one, that morning, I was in my dorm room down in DC at American,
Right.
and one of my buddies knocks on my door. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "Nothing." He goes, "You done with classes?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Come on." I said, "Where are we going?" He goes, "Oh, I got tickets." I go, "For what?" He goes, "Game 6." We got in his car, drove up to New York,
Wow.
went to the game, drove back because he had to be in his 8 a.m. class.
Right. That's a commitment to the academics still. We're impressed.
Me, I'm like, I'm sleeping in. But so we were at game 6. And then when they won it in game 7, I was going nuts. And I left my dorm room and I was just so full of energy. I'm running around the quad. And all of a sudden there was like 500 New Yorkers in the quad just screaming, going nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, DC had no baseball team back then, right?
Right.
Wow. They probably all Baltimore Oriole fans. Wow. How do you feel about your manager?
He last year he seemed to hold his own.
Sure.
Obviously he's got the pedigree.
Sure.
He comes from a baseball family. I'm sure he learned a lot from Felipe Alou's dad.
Sure.
And I was actually listening to him on the fan earlier today, and they brought up to him, what do they think Lindor and the crowd and this and that. He goes, told him what I tell all my players. This is New York. This is nowhere where else you've been.
No.
You've got to deal with everything that comes with it. And he's got a level head. He knows the game. He seemed to make all the right moves last year. As far as he wasn't just by the new analytics book, he would keep pitchers in, couple extra batters, or he'd pull somebody if he didn't like what he saw.
Sure.
He would pinch hit, which nobody ever does anymore.
True.
And I like him. I think he might have a really solid future.
Yeah. I think, plus, coming up with some of these guys through the minors, I think helps too.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it definitely gives you a little credibility. The guys know you have their back, and because you were working for them when you weren't making a lot of money. So I think guys respect that. But
Well, that's what a lot of them they said about Davey Johnson.
sure.
The 86 team, they listened to him because they all grew up with him in the minors.
Sure. Now you got a really tough division this year. The Phillies are always tough, and I believe in Joe Girardi as a manager. The Nationals obviously have guys like Soto, just so tough. Got Bryce too, but he's like, Bryce left. He's on the Phillies now. And you'd have obviously the Marlins have always given the Mets a little bit of trouble, and the Braves, of course, have loaded up again. So, yeah, how you feel about that division this year?
It's probably the hardest it's been since the 80s when it was the Cardinals and the Mets and
Sure.
the Pirates when Bonilla and Bonds were young,
Oh yes, yes.
and the Phillies were scrappy back then with Dalton and their
Yep.
pitching
Yep.
staff. But I mean, you look at this division realistically, Soto and Acuna could be two of the top 10 players in baseball right now.
Oh yes, yes. Soto and Acuna, definitely. I had Acuna on my home run derby team a couple of years ago. He definitely helped me out. He is rough, and then you're not even counting Harper. So it just goes to show you how good the division is. And you got Alonso in this division, obviously, on your side. I mean, you got Lindor. I mean, you got some players that are just, I mean, some of the pitching in the division is outrageous too. I mean, Max Scherzer and Jacob are just two studs. I mean, you just can't get any better than that. I mean, it's just so much talent in the division. And look what the Marlins did last year. Just a great.
Well, that's the scary. That's the scary thing. That to me, because the Braves. I think right now I would say the Braves are the top of the class.
Yeah. So to me, I always talk to so many Met fans with students in the hallway teaching, and we always have baseball dialogue back and forth in the hallway. And I always say to the Met fans, I say, I always feel like whoever takes advantage of the weak link in the division the best has an advantage. You get 19 games, but the Marlins last year sprung up and surprised a lot of people. So for me, if you could ever have one of those years, we've all had those years where you go 17-2 versus a team in your division. And if you have one of those years, it just gives you such a leg up. Because everybody else goes 13-6, you already gained 4 games just against that team. But like I said, the Marlins have always been a thorn in the Mets side, and they always have good young prospects coming up. Will come out one day and throw a shutout their second game in the major leagues. The Marlins are always tough.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think Mattingly does an amazing job.
Yeah, he does.
And as far as the Mets always seem to have problems facing pitchers for the first time.
Sure.
And that's what the Marlins throw at a lot of people a lot.
Yeah, they don't have the money. You're right. They're like the A's. They have no cash, so you never know who's coming out there.
And the Mets, they've had this success with Scherzer. They've had this success against Strasburg. Atlanta loaded up again, pitching wise, which they always do.
Sure.
So I think Washington's going to slip a little
Sure.
just because Scherzer's getting older. Strasburg always gets hurt for a period.
Sure.
They lost Rendon, which is going to hurt.
Oh yeah, he's in California. That's not helping me any.
And Philly's always got a chance because their ballpark is like
Oh yeah,
a bandbox. So
like playing pinball.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's they're the old Wrigley Field during the day with the wind blowing out every day.
Yeah, the ball does fly out of there. It's a nice short drive. You could drive there in like 2 hours from where we are. It's pretty easy place to get to. It's got it's a nice ballpark. I've been there once. I was trying to go back this summer sometime. Let's see if we can get you to hop in the car and we'll get you in there. So I know this is hard. You can't anticipate injuries, things of that nature, but do you feel like you'll be playing important games in September?
Yeah, with this team, absolutely, especially on the injury front. If Syndergaard comes back and could be productive, then I don't think anybody's touching the starting five.
Yeah,
I mean, they're going to be throwing a legit starter at somebody every day.
and I also think the sleeping giant, of course, everybody's been talking about, but no one's thought of this. With the owner that you have, if it comes to trade deadline, he's going to pull the trigger. So, I don't know, say Houston finally comes back down to earth and they've got a couple of guys whose contracts are up this year, like Correa and stuff like that. And suppose Verlander's at the end of his contract here and he's struggling, he'll go out and pull the trigger. He doesn't care.
Right.
So I think that's such an advantage when you have an owner to do that, because that's what's really hurt the A's the last couple of years is that we don't go get a horse. You gotta have one horse in the postseason. We got like semi horses. I got like 5 number 3 starters, but I have a great bullpen, but I don't have that one guy like where I go, here's the ball, I'll see you in the 7th. I don't have anybody like that. So always say, oh, we gotta go out and get a horse, But the Mets, they'll go get a horse. I was surprised that they didn't look at a guy like Jake Odorizzi, who's unfortunately the Astros signed because they're smart. So Verlander's out for 60 days, but then they go out and they pick him up. So I'm like, why couldn't the A's pick him up? He's not expensive. But the Mets, they could have definitely picked him up, and he's a very good pitcher. He's takes the mound as often as possible. I mean, I think your owner is the secret weapon when it comes late July.
Well, that's the hope again, and the winter proved that out because, like I said, when they went after somebody, yeah, they didn't get everybody, but it wasn't because their offers were embarrassing.
Right.
Like when Vladimir Guerrero was a free agent for the first time, and
Sure.
everybody's throwing hundreds of millions of dollars at him, and the Mets are saying, "Well, what if we go 3 years for 32 million? How does that sound?" We tried.
And I would have loved if you would have got Vladimir off the Angels, but he killed me he killed me every night.
But yeah, he seems, if it makes sense, it's not that money's not an object, but it's not an obstacle.
Sure. Yeah, that's I always feel like Randon. I mean, Randon now and that lineup in Anaheim is rough. The LA Angels, but you figure the Angels are going to get it right one of these years. It's just makes you nervous because the lineup is ridiculous. It's Shotani's going to get off one of these years, and Trout is Trout, and it's just oh my God.
My big hope is that the Angels struggle for a few years, and Trout says, "I've had enough."
Yeah, well, he's getting that,
and we'll be one of those teams. We'll be one of the few teams that can pick up that contract
because they have been struggling. Their pitching has just broken down the last several years, and their bullpens have been okay. But Joe Madden, I'm feeling he's going to get the most out of him. But last year was such a short season; they didn't get off to a good start out of the gate, and so we capitalized on them. But you're always afraid they're going to get that pitching down because that lineup is solid, and Joe Madden's a good manager. So it's I was hoping they would have held on to Scioscia. I'm one of the few people that don't think he's a good manager, but I guess I saw him every night for 19 years. But I wanted to keep Scioscia like I wanted to keep Mike McCarthy on the Packers as a Viking fan. Everybody else found out what I found out. Everybody else found out what I knew later. So, so I feel the Mets definitely have to be playing important games in September. But the playoff format, very hard to get in that wild card. You know, you got to get one of those couple of spots, and then what is it? You play 3 division winners win, right?
Right.
And then we have 2 wild cards, right?
Right. And they got the play. Well, now it's 2 out of 3, not one, right?
Is it 2 out of 3?
I
Wow,
think it's 2 out of 3 this year.
that helps me a lot. See, against the A's last year, I'm looking at they lose game 1 to the White Sox, they would have been done because, like I said, we don't have that horse. But one game season, that you take Jacob out there, that thing's over. But anything else you want to talk about, Coach Silverman?
Just how, again, being an old school type guy, I can't stand the way analytics has creeped into the actual game. using it to quantify players and what you want to pay them to play, that's one thing.
Right.
But overshifting, and this guy can only throw 65 pitches, and a starting pitcher can't face 3 times, and the reliever can only this lefty on lefty and righty on righty garbage.
Yeah,
it's getting too much.
Well, it's funny you say that because they say, like, well, the hitter against the pitcher. Well, I think the pitcher's finding out things about the hitter too the first couple of times up. As 2 former pitchers, I don't know. I was really paying attention to guys when they were getting up there hit against me. I've got to learn stuff too. But it's always interesting. Yeah, people talk about that, and now we have exit velo. I know that's one of your favorites.
That is the dumbest stat ever.
Exit velo.
That one rivals the old game-winning RBI.
Yes, that was really bad. You get a single in the first inning, you go up 1-0, you win 8-7, but you never lost the lead. You get game-winning RBI.
Right. I mean, exit velo. I mean, yeah, it's great for. Yeah, I guess it would be great when somebody hits a mammoth home run. How
Sure.
far and how fast it got out.
Sure.
But if you're in a game situation, it's the 9th inning, you're down by a run, you've got runners on second and third and 2 out. In the Mets case, would you be happier with Pete Alonso hitting a 115-mile-an-hour line drive right to the shortstop for out 3, or checking his swing and hitting a Texas League double to win the game down the line?
Yeah, Wade Boggs didn't care about exit velo.
No, Tony Gwynn used to say, if I want to hit 30 home runs, I'll hit 30 home runs. But why, when I can hit it here, and everywhere?
It's funny because I think of a guy back in the old days like Dave Kingman who used to hit him high. So like his exit velo would be terrible today, but his kid, he hit him out of the park. So it doesn't matter, or like Matt Olson on the A's now, he hits them really high. He doesn't hit them like on line drives like Ken Griffey did. He hits them high and long. His exit velo, I could really care less about the exit velo. And the shifting, I don't mind because I think it takes advantage of players who aren't as skilled and don't have the proper approach at the plate. So I don't mind using the shift on defense. You see it too much, though. I think teams are over shifting now.
Well, my problem, and as a pitcher, you'll probably agree. I mean, the first thing you think of if they're overshifting, great. As a pitcher, you just took 2/3 of the plate away from me because I have to throw most of the time. I have to throw in.
Yep.
And he knows I'm throwing in.
Exactly.
So now you took 2/3 of the plate away because if I go middle or out, there's nobody there.
Sure.
So if he does actually swing that way, then it's a hit.
Sure.
And then, well, the new people are like, well, he didn't hit a home run. I'm sorry, I don't know a player who hits a home run every at bat.
I don't know anybody who didn't hit a home run into a shift either. If you're going to hit it over the fence, the shift doesn't matter.
And then like example with the Mets, teams last year started shifting Michael Conforto like crazy.
Yeah.
If anything, other than McNeil on that team, he's the one guy I wouldn't shift because he hits to all fields.
He does. Conforto does hit to all fields. I always feel like he's a better version of, remember Dave Magadan?
Yes.
Dave Magadan was a really good hitter, but I feel like Conforto obviously is a much better hitter, but he also has power too. I mean, Magadan, though, very underrated hitter. I thought he was always very solid, very professional at bats. I feel like Conforto is a professional hitter as well.
Yeah, and he's another one. He's they're talking about extending him, but he's another Boros guy. So
yeah, it's hard.
The hope is that Boros doesn't steer him to like Kansas City for $30 more.
Yeah, Boros must have extra commission because he's starving.
So saying it's like with these guys, yeah, because we're not getting the money, so we always say when's enough. But yeah,
Sure.
on their point, they want to get as much as they want
I
because it
understand that.
shows their
Sure.
worth. And I
Sure.
get it, but it's just as a fan, it's frustrating.
You know, it's funny though. What if you said, I'll take 20 million less so we can get more guys, and you'll make it up in endorsements by saying things like that, especially in New York.
Well, then the union will jump in and say, no, you can't, because
Exactly.
they did that to A-Rod.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tom Brady, I always thought like he was smart about it. Like, oh, I'm just going to take a little less and blah, blah, blah. And, he get, that way you can have other guys to be signed and makes you look like a hero, even though you're making still 10, 15 million a year. You're not really a hero, but in people's eyes, it shows a little something different. But I'm interested to see when the Mets get back home, how the crowd first responds to Lindor. I'm just hoping that for his sake, he doesn't come back to New York at like 2 for 20
Yeah, with like 5 double plays and
and a couple of errors.
yeah.
He won't believe it.
Well, what we just discussing with the salary, that goes to Lindor too. You're talking about this great personality, this guy that loves life. He's always smiling, always happy,
Sure.
and now he's in New York.
Yep.
How many more millions can he make on top of the contract? Which, by the way, they're only offering him 32 and a half a year.
Sure.
I mean, you're talking about a guy that could pull in 45 million dollars a year between salary and endorsements.
And the other thing is, I think what he asked for might be more years, but I think it's less per year. I believe if I was.
Yeah, it's like a million less.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. I mean, I can't sign anybody to 12. You saw what happened to the Pujols deal, and he's still a good run producer for the Angels, but he's at the end of that contract, and I think this year he makes his most money, and so it's hard. He's still a tough out in that middle of that Angels lineup, and they got a ton of guys on base in front of him. But I've watched him every year since he signed that deal, and like I said, still a threat at any time. And he's the rare exception. Most guys can't stay this much of a threat. I mean, his batting averages drop, but if he hits it on the ground, he's a walking double play. But just you'd hate to see a guy at 39 trying to play in New York on the end of a 12-year deal. I mean, plus he's going to say, "Oh, I want more money." I guess in 12 years, he'll probably feel like that's obviously that salary won't be at the top of the charts as far as salaries go in the league. But I think he's got to be smart though, because next year there's a lot of shortstops who are free agents. We're still in a pandemic. Owners are still not going to have full capacity. Now I know this gentleman has the most money in Major League Baseball, but still, he's still a businessman. You still want to make some money off a business venture. I know he says he doesn't care if he makes money off of it, but you don't want to lose money either.
Right. And like like a lot of people point out, he didn't become a multi-billionaire by being a dummy.
Right.
So,
True. So true.
and everything he's done, especially I don't know if you heard the big news from yesterday.
No.
They're bringing back the black jersey.
Yeah, everybody loves the black jerseys. I like them too. I have to say, I do like them. What was the problem? When did they take them away for a short period?
They used them in 2000.
Right.
Then they sparingly used them in 2001, and then they disappeared.
Wow, I think they were great. That was a great look, I thought.
And the fans loved them. When they wore them, they had a ridiculous record.
Sure. I know.
So the players became superstitious.
I love the
But
feeling.
but this is one of those things that this owner's doing, to appease the fans
Sure.
and give them something good to talk about. So everybody's all pumped for the
Sure.
black jersey. It's little things like that
Make it.
that it's going to bring the fans back.
Yeah, I mean, we have this love affair with the Kelly Green jerseys for the A's. I mean, it's not really an attractive green, but yet the fans love those Kelly Green jerseys. It's a little bit lighter than this green, and we still have the yellow sleeveless ones that we wear sometimes, and fans love those days. And we still all wear the white cleats, which is one of the reasons, the first things I noticed when I was a budding A's fan at 4 years old. But the thing is, the fans appreciate those uniforms, and they appreciate all the little things you can do at concession stands and different things like that. Fans care about that stuff.
Oh yeah, another thing is not this year probably because no fans, but he's open to bringing back Old Timers Day.
Oh, you should. I don't know why they ever got rid of that in the first place.
The smart aleck answer is probably because Wilpon didn't want to pay to have everybody come back.
Sheesh. I mean, nickels and dimes, and you're a multi-millionaire. I mean, I don't know, man. That's just me. I don't.
Hey, we were a small market team, they always say, oh well, we always had like $150 million payroll. Well, 2 million of that every year goes to Bobby Bonilla.
And you're in New York. That's not a
And
big
you're in
enough.
New York, you shouldn't be in 150. You should be up around. I'm not saying you have to beat the Yankees, but you got to be in the top 2 or 3.
Well, like I said, I think your man's going to go for it here. You guys are right there, and in late July, he's going to pull the trigger, and I think that that's going to really excite the Met fan because, even though the Wilpons had their moments where they spent with Piazza and, of course, the left fielder there that didn't work out from Boston, I won't mention his name. He did spend money on those situations. He did spend money on Cespedes, and that didn't work out. But
Well, Cespedes did work out.
yeah,
for
he
1
worked
year.
out. Yeah, but then they extended him too bad. In the last couple of years, he's hurting himself golfing and fighting wild boars.
Wild boards and riding motorcycles. But Piazza was all Doubleday. That wasn't Wilpon.
Sure, and it was all Mike and the Mad Dog.
Mac and the Mad Dog.
Oh, they made that happen. They harassed people on the radio. I couldn't believe they had that much power. I was like, wow, these guys are powerful when they're like making people make trades. I was like, man, Mike and Chris did not pull punches that day. For once they're on the same page. He's like, I want Piazza, I don't care what it costs. It was fun.
But even with that, Fred Wilpon was dead set against it, and
Yep.
Doubleday sat him down and said, "What are you, crazy?
Yeah, you gotta take him.
This is the best catcher in baseball."
Yep.
And it just, I mean, even something as simple as the new stadium.
Sure.
Right. Granted, the taxpayers paid for most of it,
Sure.
and it's a gorgeous stadium, and I love it. But even that, he couldn't get totally right. Why is it an homage to the Dodgers?
Yeah, and Tom Seaver statue. Are you kidding me?
It took forever to get that, and it'll probably come up this year.
Right, and now he's gone.
Yeah, and he's gone, and his family probably won't come out.
Yep, and I don't blame him. I tell you, I don't know what they were thinking about with that, and it's not a hard thought. It's not like a stretch, and people have been talking about that for years. So this is not a new thing. I mean, people have been mentioning that for years about how can we not have a Tom Seaver? He's the best Met of all time. How can we not have a Tom Seaver statue? He's homegrown. He even announced some of your games. I mean, like, what else do you want? It's
Think about it. The stadium opened in 2008.
Right.
And it took until 2020 for them to announce the statue.
Yeah.
That's what that thing should have been drawn up for the opening of the stadium.
Right. They should have, but they started making plans and say 04 or 05. They should have been going on a Seaver. They should have had a Tom Seaver section.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Whose jersey you got on today?
Wearing Robin Ventura.
The Hitman from Okie State.
That's when I first fell in love with him, that hitting streak.
Yeah, see, I just wish he wouldn't have charged him out on Nolan Ryan.
Still one of the funniest videos out there.
He got whooped that day. Nolan was, I think about halfway out, he realized he was going to get his butt kicked too. I could tell he was like,
Nolan's just standing there going, really?
Yeah, Nolan was going like this in the mitt. I was like, oh my goodness, you don't want to go out there. Nolan was a lot bigger. He's a big man. He's a tank of a man. But just a crazy, crazy situation though. But yeah, so the Mets, again, they should be good. Them and the Yankees both should be good. The New York Airwaves should have plenty of baseball conversation, which will be good. That's the last year we got such a shortened season. 60 games was great to have something, but not as much fun as the 162.
But it really felt weird.
It did feel weird. I agree with you 1,000%. So it was very, very, very weird. But I tell you, when it came back, I was so excited. I still remember the date. It was July 23rd, and they came back, and I was pumped. The A's played the Angels that night. We had the first extra inning win ever with the new format. Man on second,
I hate
everybody
that.
out. Yeah, well, I think for the home team, it's such an advantage. But for the away team, you don't know what's going to happen in their bottom half. And of course, the A's, we can't bunt because you got on the A's fan website. Well, that's not the way the game's played anymore. So I said, well, so winning baseball isn't played anymore. So we don't want to move the guy to third. That's my one criticism of Melvin. I mean, he's a great manager, but never bunts, never hit and runs. He's got that Billy Bean thing. We don't want to give away an out. I'm like, hey, Bill, you want any titles for us? No, I don't want to hear it anymore. Still haven't watched Moneyball out of protest. Never watched it one time.
It actually was.
I'm sure it's a great movie.
It was actually very good. But the whole thing, I'm like, no.
Yeah, you didn't win. You came close, and then you traded Cespedes. We had the best record in baseball. Ridiculous. Because you know why? Because Cespedes, and people don't notice if they don't follow the A's. Cespedes played hurt. He refused to be he wanted to have a 4-man rotation in the outfield. And Cespedes was like, I play every day. And he kept going out there. He wouldn't come out when he got hurt. So Cespedes back then was obviously played when he got hurt, but he wouldn't come out. So they shipped him out of town. and we get John Lester, who can't hold a 7-2 lead in the seventh. So I'm not really too thrilled about that. In 2014, still sore, still an open wound for me there. 7-2 lead in the seventh, and he can't make a pickoff move. So the Royals are running all over the place. But
Yeah, no, my biggest heartbreak with the Mets was actually game one of the 2000 World Series.
oh yeah, that was a bad break.
Well, that was also the night Brandon and I's first anniversary.
Oh wow,
So we actually went into the city, um, and we went to a show and we stayed in a hotel.
sure.
And when we got back to the hotel, we stopped in the bar and everybody's watching the game. And I'm watching that at bat, watching that at bat. And I'm like, just throw a damn fastball.
Sure.
What are you doing? And he ends up walking O'Neill. And I was like, and I just went up to the room and watched the end of the game. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's it. They just lost the series.
Yeah, well, game ones are important. Ask the 88 A's. Ask him that one. Well, Steve, thanks for coming on. We appreciate having you. And maybe at the All-Star break, we'll have to have you back on. We can do a little progress for the Mets. But do you think, I hate to put you on the spot, playoffs, yes or no? What do you think? Yeah, providing they're healthy. Providing they're healthy.
Providing they're healthy, I'll say this 93, 94 wins, and let's see where that takes them.
And 93 and 94, you're going to get in. Yes, and that division-
Hopefully.
in that
I
division-
always have fears of that. I mean, they don't, with the wild card, it won't have, but the year that the Giants won 100 and didn't make the playoffs,
Yeah, but this division, if you get 93 wins in that division, you've done something. So you guys have got to play all these teams 19 times in that division.
yeah, but I think they have an easy, other than the Yankees, I think their interleague is easier this year.
Yeah, no A's this year. I think I checked.
There's that's the one thing everyone's like, oh, it's so, I mean, yeah, I like it, but nobody else has to play the Yankees 4 times in this interleague stuff.
I got to play the Dodgers this weekend.
Well, that's another joke. I mean,
Play
why?
the Dodgers and the Giants every year. This is not funny. And the San Diego Padres, and oh my goodness, the NL West. Like, can I play somebody else? Can I play the Central? Can I play NL Central, please? Can I go play the Reds at the Great American Ballpark and bunt home runs? Good God.
have my team have my entire team come out of a slump at once.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Let me go play the Central. The Central is like, oh my God, can we just please go play the Pirates and somebody else and get it over?
Well, that's going to be the key. How the Mets do against the other divisions in interleague, and just stay scrapping with every. Like I said, right now I'd say Atlanta 1, us 2, Washington right behind us, then Philadelphia, then Miami. But even Miami can be an above 500 team.
Sure, and they could also beat you 10 out of 19 times. They're
Right. Or something can happen and they can end up being back in the 50, 60 win Baltimore land.
But that godforsaken ballpark down there too. It's nice, but I mean, it's weird. It's like nobody's there. It's probably a hard place to play. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, the Met division is rough. This is the roughest it's been, like you said, in a long time. So, but again, thanks for coming on, and we'll have you again at the All-Star break if you're available, and then we'll talk some more Met baseball, and we'll see you along the way.
Sounds good.
Thanks.